deals with these quite.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I realized I should have been recording.
Yeah.
Thank you for the heads up. What I was going to say is each university deals with the exemption process a little bit differently. So my university used to offer it and then they stopped for various reasons, and now everything still goes out for review. I mean, there are a few very rare exceptions, but whereas at my old university, almost everything I do was deemed exempt because it was online, anonymous, innocuous survey research or online experimental research. We still had to put it in and say, here's what we plan to do. And then they said, yep, this is exempt, you're good to go, as opposed to going through the full process. So
yeah, so we definitely do have still the exemptions. And yeah, I had our ethics manager who's very, he's very, what's the word, pragmatic. He's not silly about overdoing it, but, and he said, yeah, that's correct. Exemption for the existing data under the quality assurance and LNR review for the prospective data collection, as that's not really QA, but to develop further research. Oh, that was the other idea, so that it can be used potentially if you wanted to develop this further, that we'd have ethics to say that this was all done, with ethics approval, to then go use that as a sort of new prototype to do further development.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we could I guess like if we did proceed, and like we have already filled in the forms and done all of the checkboxes for the current data set that we have. So either that's valid or it's not. And if it's valid, like the way that the processes that we've already followed, then it would seem to me that completing these reviews and just like completing this package would be given the waiver that, you're proposing to go through. And so I guess
I think if it was just us playing, oh well, but we're not on the like AIMOS, committee or anything either.
And it's no longer purely quality assurance like the other thing could be argued to be, is I think the rub, no?
Yeah. Yeah, like once we are what's the word? Sort of playing with the data in a new way that is considered, outside of just giving feedback to AIMOS about what to do differently next time, or
Okay. How long do you think this would take, Hannah?
I'm just having a look. So the deadline is 2nd of April for the April meeting. So I could definitely get that done. It's how long. I can probably find out from my partnerships manager how long their kind of standard is at the moment. Like I think if it's done properly, like if I'm careful to kind of include everything in the submission and we can ensure that there's no clarifications, it could just be reviewed and then approved and that would be my hope. It's when you have things where they're coming back to ask more questions that there can be delays. But if I work to get it kind of very clear, which I think I could do, it's not complicated to describe, then maybe we could get it that quickly. Are you working while you're away, or are you traveling offline?
Like working in the sense of connecting with communities and charities over there.
Right, yeah.
But I don't think I'll have a lot of time for, like I can have time to check emails and stuff, but I don't think I'll have a lot of time for analysis or anything like that, if that's what you mean.
Right, so you're wanting to do stuff before you go?
Well, I guess I was
or by the time you get back, you hope.
I was kind of hoping that we could have this out with the reviewers and like give them, a few weeks to to complete some reviews, and then sort of check in and just follow up any questions they have, and like have all of the reviews done by the time I got back, because it's then there's like a analysis phase we'll have to enter into, and that's I'd say a month of analysis, and then
Really? Oh, okay.
well, probably not that long. I mean, if I jumped onto it a couple of weeks, but there's very invariably like some fiddling and exploration of different algorithms and that sort of thing, and data processing. And then the SIPS conference is early June, like the 10th of June. So I'd be back at the start of May, and that kind of knocks out May. Yeah, that's a relatively tight timeline.
What about if we got everything ready to go out to the reviewers, and then like basically by the time you go, and then you leave it with us to actually, or even, we can say from Cooper, blah, 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 but leave it with us to send it out once we get the ethics approval.
When is the April meeting, did you
So
say?
I don't know why it says the ethics meeting, the April meeting, the submission deadline is 2nd of April, but it doesn't have the date of the meeting.
Because usually that's at least a few working days after submission date.
Okay.
So if it's anything like here,
Yeah.
Submission date and the meeting date, because people need time to review it to get their reviews back.
Yeah. Okay.
We could be talking mid-April.
Okay.
I'm surprised they don't. It should list the date.
With the date, yeah.
If I have access to it as a non-QUT person.
Oh no, I'm UQ.
Oh, sorry, UQ. Sorry, didn't mean to. UQ.
Oh no, like at this point, I'd rather be QUT. That was not at all. You've got the wrong.
I have people at both, and I think the ones at QUT might be a little happier, but I'll leave it there because we're being recorded. Ethics.
Sorry.
That's okay. What I said is factual. Colleagues have expressed this to me, and I haven't named them.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of it is. Oh, here we go. Meeting schedule. They meet every 4 weeks on a Thursday.
This is but not which Thursday?
Okay. So it looks like there's a submission date of March 26th and a meeting date of April 11.
Hang on. We must be looking at different.
This is UQ? No?
Yeah.
Let me send you the web page I'm on.
Okay. Like this doesn't surprise me at all that we've got multiple.
So go there and then go to that little expandable thingy. Now, whether this is accurate, I don't know, but it says for 2024.
Yeah, HR. So what on earth?
Does your internal resource say something different?
Yeah, I've got 2024. I wonder, so it looks like they've got now 2 committees.
Yes, HREC A and HREC B.
Yeah, I wonder if but each one
Each one does every 4 weeks. So every 2 weeks there is a meeting of one.
They alternate. I wonder if that's why there's a different. I only seem to have a single ethics committee. That's very strange.
It is a little odd.
I'll find
Not
out.
discipline specific. So whenever we submit, that's the committee it goes to.
So basically every
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks there's a date. Okay, so I could try and get it in by the 26th of March, and that would be for the 11th of April. When it's the 26th. Oh, yeah.
And the
Okay.
other thing, I don't know whether UQ does this. Some ethics committees, if you get stuff into them early enough, they offer like a little pre-review where they take a quick look at it and flag things that they want you to tidy up before the actual meeting. I don't know if yours does that or not.
Yeah, okay.
If we're really trying to make sure that once it's at the actual committee, it should go through because we've addressed everything that they're concerned about. I think we can, I mean,
When I go to the inquiries, yeah,
yeah,
page cannot be found.
of course it can't. Because what we're planning to do, I think, should be considered low or negligible risk, as
Yeah,
long as we're
definitely,
mindful of
definitely.
confidentiality and everything. It's just, like
Yeah.
you say, for us to claim this as an academic enterprise without going through ethics could be hazardous.
Yeah.
So can I, sorry to keep being this guy, but can I clarify, is that the main reason this is necessary if we want to claim this as an academic enterprise,
And if we want to publish it, yeah.
like publishing a
Like
journal?
a conference presentation, like Anna said to me, if somebody were presenting research at a conference and hadn't gone through at least getting ethics exemption for what they were planning, I'd be a bit puzzled. As opposed to like in an art space where, you know, as long as you're not hurting people, presumably whatever you do goes. But yeah.
Okay, so presenting at a conference to you is considered
I mean, it's an
academic.
academic conference, which it sounds like it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay,
I
because
wonder.
I'm just thinking in terms of like it's an open science conference, much like AIMOS was, and I'm thinking back to all of the hackathons I've participated in at these conferences where all of the data was, you know, consensually provided and published on GitHub, and no one ever signed waivers, or we didn't go through ethics. We just collaborated to create a new project. And you know, you could consider all of our comments and reviews and all of the work that we've done at these hackathons was in a very similar vein to what we're doing here. We've just taken it online, but we've maintained that kind of energy. And
are people using what gets produced in those sessions in an academic context?
yeah, I've seen people present like work from a previous hackathon and then, you know, present that at the next conference, and then they build on that again and develop the next version. Like these spaces are, from my perspective, intended to overcome these kinds of obstacles and be dynamic and collaborative. Like that's the idea of the open science and open source movement. And like I know I'm in a different perspective to everyone else in this research team because I'm not attached to a university, but I guess I keep coming back to this because it feels like this is a blockage that just doesn't feel necessary to me. But yeah, I don't want to endanger your careers or anything like that. Everyone has to feel safe to proceed. So yeah, I just like that's the analogy I draw, and it seems to me like there's plenty of examples of people that are providing data in these types of.
I mean, again, your committee might do things slightly differently, but I do think there's some precedent in some places where if data are originally collected for quality control purposes, and you then want to use those data for analyses, that you would then go to the committee and say, originally connected for this, we want a waiver to use these already de-identified data for research purposes. And you could do it the waiver route as opposed to going a full committee review.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely try that. I guess my concern would be, I guess if I did that straight away, it might
just see whether that's possible. Because really what we're proposing is that people will code these already de-identified data.
Yeah.
And we're not collecting information about the people who are doing the coding. We're not collecting their personal or sensitive information. We're just using these data that are somewhat publicly available now, and just having people say what they think about them.
Yeah, and they were told about like when the initial survey went out,
Right.
people were told that would be made
Right.
publicly available, and
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a
so
participant information sheet that everybody
yeah,
read and checked that they had read it, that said that, and they also checked to say that their data would be made available.
right.
So yeah, I mean that's the route that a senior, well, yeah, experienced and relatively senior person in the open science
Yeah.
space, who I won't name, recommended to me, which
Right.
is that we collect data as part of, you know, open heart and mind, which as a default makes all of our data publicly available.
Right.
And then if we ever want to publish a paper, we can say we use this publicly available data set that
Right.
was collected by this organization, and we analyzed it. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, like what you're saying there, and it makes sense. We could then apply for a waiver to say
Right.
we're using a publicly available data set, but specifically like the analysis that we're doing, as
Yeah.
I think you were calling that coding, Matt. Like that's
I
kind
mean,
of
I
like,
would call what we're doing is coding. People are going in and they're coding these data. They're saying, okay, which of these do I think is higher in this variable? Which do I think is this variable? I still think we need to engage with the committee, but I'm just wondering whether just doing this the waiver route, given the nature of the data, how the data were shared, whether there's really a need to go through a full thing when we're not really collecting new data, we're having people code existing data.
Right, yeah.
Because it's not like we're going and asking each reviewer to put in a bunch of personal data about themselves and see how that relates to their ratings. That would definitely wander into you need a full ethics review. But if it's just we have these data that theoretically anyone can access and people were told this before giving them.
Yeah, and
Yes,
they
we're
can
using it
do
for a
it,
slightly different purpose.
and they
So
can do
we
it
go the way.
anonymously.
Yeah,
They can opt to do it anonymously. Yeah.
exactly. And if we make that clear to them and make that clear in the waiver, that if you have concerns about, you know, feeling like you need to rate in a certain way, it's up to you what handle you want to use. You can remain completely anonymous, or if you want us to know who you are, you're free to disclose that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
That way you put the choice in the reviewer's hands. We're working with already available data. Everybody who gave the data knew what they were signing up for. It's not that it's particularly sensitive data either. Like some
No.
unnamed person cleaned the dishes. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
one.
All right. Why don't I try and do that? I'll even try to get to this afternoon and see how much of the detail I can get in there without coming back to you all. But I think I'll give it a go. Why don't we do that and see what they say?
Yeah, because worst come to worst, then okay, we have to go back to the plan of trying to go through the minimal risk route. But
yeah,
the more I think about the nature of the data and what we're doing with it, this strikes me as an apply for an exemption situation.
okay.
This is, yeah, to me, it seems like such low risk. I can't imagine
Right.
that. I mean, yeah, it's been a long while since I applied for ethics, but this is the definition of low risk, and
or negligible, even I would argue. So
yeah,
with the understanding that different committees seem to understand these things differently.
yeah,
My old uni, everything we did was negligible with like 2 exceptions. So whereas at other unis, like, oh no, you still have to go through a full review process, even though it's totally anonymous and online, and you're just asking people questions about their food choices. We still have to jump through all these hoops. So,
yeah. Wow.
yeah, I do miss that.
yeah, like I guess the benefit would be, like, the benefit of doing it that way is that we could get started on reviews
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
like we have already started some reviews, like unless we're going to discard the ones that the 70 reviews that we've already started doing.
The cleanest thing to do is probably that, but we can just treat those as a pilot sort of coding exercise. But if those aren't the final data we use, we get the waiver, we have people code, and we're good.
Well, everything's balanced, so I don't want to discard them. It's either like we reset them and start again.
Reset, I mean, reset.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Clear the data. We can keep it there for now as sort of, you know, so we can look at what we've done. But when it comes time to actually do the full exercise, we're not going to lose much time by clearing those 70 responses and just, you know, starting fresh.
So
There are also a few things about those comparisons I did want to quickly discuss today as well. So
yeah, for sure. I definitely want to get to that. Just to sort of make sure we're all on the same page here.
yeah.
Because you were saying, I think I'm a little bit confused. Like, are we, is the plan to do all of these reviews and then, I'm seeing a shake of head. So,
My
so,
understanding is we apply for the waiver ASAP, hopefully get the waiver, and then have the reviews be done.
okay, so we would need to wait until the 11th of April is the
No, no,
earliest.
No,
no.
no, no. If it's a review waiver, it doesn't have to go to a full committee meeting. It happens much faster. That's
Oh,
why I was proposing that as a much more expeditious way
okay.
of doing it. So a
Yeah,
waiver,
okay.
as Anna said, goes to a committee member who takes a look and says, does this actually seem exempt, or are they just trying to pull a fast one on us? And if they agree it seems exempt, then we get this official thing saying, yes, we've checked this, it's exempt, go for your life.
Okay. And so then if they say no, we could submit the full
Right.
thing for the
Right,
11th of
right.
April. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I'm just trying to avoid the unfortunate situation of we're confident we'll get an exemption. We have people do all this coding work and then we don't get an exemption.
Yeah,
Unlikely, but that would be really annoying.
yeah. And I've had a friend really, like, literally get reported as a breach of integrity for using ordinarily collected data that was always collected as part of the seminar evaluation, and then started to use it in research,
Oh,
to be able to
didn't know
publish
the
it, and use
information.
stuff like merged basically the already collected and the new, and like completely not intentionally, just too busy, just poor file management really, and dobbed herself in. And then because the ethics, they were like, yeah, no, you've breached the code, and she's been like reported. It's such a joke. And this is what I mean. Like, most of the time, the integrity committee is dealing with cases of good people who
Right.
just, they decide haven't done. So like, rather than spending their time on the big problems, they're out to, just put chalk on the wall basically and go, yeah, we've found this many cases, and because they've got to report back to NHMRC and all of this. Bit of a joke. Anyway, let's do that. I'll try and get the waiver in, if not today, tomorrow, and see whether they give it. It would be good, and I'll just try and be as clear.
Yeah. Make it really clear under what auspices and these information were given.
Yeah.
That they're already, as I understand, publicly available, given how they were provided. So,
Yeah. Yep. Let's do that. Yeah, so then the issue is the actual reviews that we've done.
Yeah.
Like, we sort of use those as a sort of like a information
Just testing the
gathering
system.
exercise. Yeah.
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 Again, these data are publicly there. We tinkered around with them to see whether what we're proposing to do works.
Yeah.
And then we would just, clear those data points when we did the actual exercise.
Yeah, that sounds good. Are you okay with that, Cooper?
Yeah, as long as that, so you're saying that waiver would also cover what we plan to do with
The
the reviews
ranking.
that we plan
We
to do.
tell them that we
Yeah.
want to do that and say, yes,
Yeah, and we'll
here's the
basically
data,
call
here's
it
the state.
coding,
Yeah.
I like
new
that.
coding of existing data.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. That sounds like a pretty straightforward strategy.
Should be.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good to me. If you're both happy with that. And if we can get that in as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, I will. I'll make sure.
Because then we can, find out. Well, yeah, we can get people starting reviewing as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you need anything from me for that? And like, will the form, the original form and the participant information sheet, do you have access to that? Because that sounds like that should probably go in there.
That wouldn't hurt.
That came out to us as part of the Oh, actually, no, it's not online anymore, is it? I did try and go back there. So maybe if you can send me just copies.
It should be, but I'll
I don't think the
forward it to.
link works anymore.
Oh, okay. I'll yeah, here it is. I found it here. So how do you want me to send that to you?
Oh, just emails, good. Oh, yeah, you've got my UQ on.
Yep, I'll send it to you in the email. Cool. Doing that now. In parallel, sorry, you said UQ, didn't you? Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
And form. Sent.
Thanks.
Cool. So we got 20 minutes. So yeah, like some feedback on the process would be good. Matt,
Yeah,
you
that's
said you had some
fine.
comments?
I did have a couple things I wanted to flag, so I'm glad that we were sort of doing this early phase.
Yep.
One thing I raised before, so I'll hold off on that, but I did notice, where were they? Lines 50 and lines 58. I had some concerns about how things were phrased and the potential for bias. So if we take a look at line 50, contribution B, getting up to restart the aircon every time the auto switched off. Extra comment, highly valuable in terms of delicate comfort. I don't disagree, but none of the other ones had that extra little plug for here's why this is really important, and it just stood out to me. That it's sort of telling the rater you should rank this highly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I agree, I'm glad that person did it, but I just worry that having that in the description is a little.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we should try and avoid sort of emotional language like that.
Right. Just
And
describe
yeah,
what was the task.
Any updates, like do any updates you make in the other sheet come over to
well,
this?
everything's in this one sheet now. That's the kind of new version of this prototype. So everything's contained. So all I'd be doing there is editing the description in the contribution data tab.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, tabs.
Yeah.
So if you
So you
update one
just
tab, then it'll update all of the instances of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, here's where I want to suggest that we move from an academic mindset to a like entrepreneurial mindset, and yeah, like treating this as a pilot test. Like truth be told, what I did with the Tanion study is there were some in the process of doing reviews, particularly while I was testing things out and yeah, reading through these sorts of things, realizing, yeah, some of these things weren't worded very well, or actually they'd been outdated, and so updating things on the fly. And so I was less concerned about data integrity than I was about the proof of the principle, because the goal of this, as I see it, is to demonstrate how the system could work once it's got all of the checks and bounds that allow versioning properly. I mean, we do have versioning in like Google Sheets, so you can see at what date things were changed, and you could, in theory, go back through and see, okay, this was changed after someone had done, some of the pilot test reviews.
right.
But yeah, it's kind of, I see this as an evolving thing, and the main goal is to like take notes on what we've learned. So that's something that we need to take note of. Like I'm using emotional language in the descriptions.
In some of them, most of them were quite neutral. It's just that one jumped out because unlike the others, it had an extra statement saying why it's really valuable. That's the concern that I was raising. And I get that, proof of principle, nothing needs to be perfect. But if the plan is to sort of clear these and start fresh once we get the waiver, I just think it could be good just to double check the descriptions so that they're presented in a similar enough way that, something like that isn't skewing the results.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And one of the feedbacks from the Tanion study was that some, like the various contributions were described to a different degree. So some of them were really, like a single sentence, and then others had like in-depth descriptors. So that is something that we want to try and control for to the best that we can. But it's also a bit I mean, it's pretty awkward because people have submitted these,
They've
like
submitted
age.
what they've submitted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would be adding our own bias by filling them out or cutting parts out.
Removing.
So
Yeah.
I think like this is one
Yeah.
of the this is the thing that I think in the future it's going to be, we're going to have little pop-up bubbles and it'll say things like, use 3 sentences and
Right.
describe the what, who, and the where, or whatever types of descriptors we need to include. But for this level that we're at, where we're really just like proving the principle, I think, yeah, as long as we can take out the obvious cases like you've pointed out there, Matt,
Right.
then that's the main
And
thing.
that's all I'm asking for. I mean, we can't just go create additional content ourselves. I just thought in cases like this where they're adding stuff that's a little bit superfluous, or in the other one that I flagged, I noticed, it says adapted to openly available code to create the conference website. He added relevant text and images. Like, this is one of the only ones that actually specifies the person's gender, which if we're just writing the contribution, I don't think we need to have that in there. You could just say
Yeah.
added text and just make it so it's a little less identified.
I agree. I'm just going to change those two now, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to remove the he, and I'm just going to change it to a comma, so it just says comma, added
Yeah.
relevant text and
Yeah.
images. And then I just deleted that whole second sentence that said how valuable it was in terms of delegate comfort.
Yeah. Just because those two
Yeah.
things really stood out from sort of the way that the others did things.
Yeah,
I've
I
got my
agree.
social psychology hat on here. It's a little bit glued to my head, so apologies if I'm being too anal here. But
No, I think that's exactly the sort of thing that we should be checking for, I think.
It's so interesting, the things that different people pick up.
right.
Yeah, and Matt, if you've got that hat on still, please like go through the entire set of contributions, because that would be
Yeah, I
great to
think that
have
would
like
be a good thing for me to do. So that's just under contribution data raw, right?
yeah, like not
Yeah.
all of those have been selected, so you only really need to focus on
Contributions
the
review.
yeah, there's a tag, one of the columns says selected, and if it says true in there, I can share my screen.
Yes. Oh, I see. Yep, got it.
Got it?
Contribution data
Okay,
raw and then column K. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So if it's true, then that's one of the ones that's filtering
Yep.
through. Yeah, if you can go through and just
I'm happy to do
sort of
that, and I can just add comments as if I see anything else where I'm just like, ooh, I don't know about that. Most of the other ones were fine. It's just those two really jumped out at me in the 40 or so that I did. So
cool. One other Anna, did you have any feedback while we're
Yeah, so just let me get back in. So I just wanted to double check that the algorithm is working to randomly assign them, because I found I had one particular contribution that came up, I think 5 times in the 20 that I did, which could
Oh, yeah.
be entirely random, but I just wanted to check because it seemed to be coming up a lot. And
yeah, I think it should be random. Like
okay.
that sort of anomaly does happen. I think that would just be luck.
Okay, and it did seem to always, I never got the same comparison, because they should all be different, shouldn't they?
They should all be different. There should be exactly one of every single combination for both A to B and then also B to A.
Oh, it's the same one, just flipped then.
Yeah, so that, but it's not, it's random whether you'll actually get that one.
Yeah, but that's okay. I was just checking that there was nothing in there that was resulting in a certain chunk being kind of randomized before others or anything. Okay,
should be right.
Let me see. Oh yeah, so the one just about specific contributions, the one about the rating cost of breakfast got me multiple times, because I was sitting there trying to work out whether it was the cost, like paying the cost, the monetary cost, and getting breakfast for 20 people, or the fact that AIMOS hosted it and bought breakfast for 20 people. Because I was like, I had to, rate it multiple times. And then in terms of the like generosity, I was like, oh, I remember someone saying that sounds expensive for breakfast for 20 people, but am I talking about it costs $1,000 to feed 20 people, or am I talking about someone paid that so that 20 people could have breakfast and didn't have to pay themselves?
Yeah. So I
Because then
mean,
there's a separate contribution that is AIMOS hosting the breakfast for the EMCR. Like that's listed as a separate thing. So I ended up in my head going, that must be well, you know, but this is just how complex it is when you've got different people
Right.
giving different contribution, like naming the different contributions, because what they meant isn't necessarily what we interpret.
yeah,
And
this
does
is
that.
probably the biggest challenge. Like clearly conveying what it is we want people to consider as the contribution. I think in some ways it helps showing the contributor, because like there's a column that I've not shown on purpose in this version, which is who is the contributor, like what's their username. And if we showed that, it would show that this amount was paid by AIMOS, like that would be the contributor. Whereas, yeah, I mean, maybe it's really confusing even describing what the cost was for. Like,
Right.
because then people are implicitly sort of, as you say, within the one contribution trying to weigh up, is $1,100 a good amount to spend on breakfast for 20 people? Whereas actually the contribution is the $1,100.
Right.
Like and that had to come from somewhere. Obviously it came from people's registration fees, or it came from like grants, or wherever it came from. But that's like I threw a bunch of these dollar values in to have a bit of a range, because one of the limitations of the last version was that we only had two dollar values in there. And it didn't have, well, it wasn't a very diverse sample to try and figure out the relative value of dollar amounts.
Different dollars, whereas I found that really like difficult, because I was going, am I just talking about the $40 that it cost for that registration, or am I talking about the fact that AIMOS made concession registration $40, which makes it very accessible and open to people? Like,
yeah. Actually, I was looking through some of your responses, and I thought that might have happened, because I saw the like the review for inclusivity on the $40.
Right, yeah, because I was going, well, that means that heaps of different types of people can access it.
But is the question the fact that the policy set it at 40, or somebody gave 40, which will give you very different answers?
Exactly. Yeah, it's in my framing, it's that someone gave $40. So
right, mine too. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, see, this is maybe the problem with having the question so broad and simple. Like select the contribution that demonstrates more inclusivity. You could interpret that to be, as you say, the fact that AIMOS makes this available. Well, that's very inclusive, but that's not actually that's not what we want to get, because the result of this is we want to reward that user that paid $40 with a token that says thank you for your $40. Basically, we're not rewarding AIMOS for making it available. That would be another contribution, I guess. Like that.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, but where do they get rewarded for the fact that they do make this accessible compared to other conferences of a similar type that don't make it inclusive, or
which is a big issue. I'm not going to name names, but there was a large conference earlier or late last year, not that long ago, that normally makes things really accessible, but decided to hold it in this very expensive resort so that most grad students just couldn't afford it. And I know a lot of people who just boycotted the conference because they were so angry. People that could afford it, but were just so angry they made it so exclusive. So the fact that AIMOS goes out of their way to make things accessible is a huge win, and really laudable. but that's not what that particular item was asking.
Yeah, okay, because so I don't think I did any of the dollar values then as what they're intended to mean, because well, I don't even know how to put generosity, inclusivity, creativity and stuff on a dollar value.
Yeah, that's something I raised a few meetings ago as well, that for a lot of these, I'm just like, this descriptor is irrelevant to me. I'm just going to pick A every time I don't know how to categorize things and hope it evens out. Because
Yeah,
yeah, somebody gives $40. How creative is that? I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, like it doesn't, and I noticed a couple of times I rated one as more generous, inclusive, transparent. I don't think for all the categories, but
Yeah,
for multiple. And then it was like, which one are you more grateful for? And I was the other one,
yeah,
because even though I thought for those particular values, the other one was higher, me personally being grateful didn't actually hinge on
right.
whether I thought it was these things.
hmm,
Yeah, it's a little tricky. As previously discussed, I think a lot of these tags would be great in an arts context, but in the context of AIMOS, like I'm not sure how much some of them map onto individual contributions.
Well, so hmm,
Gratitude works really well for me, but a lot of the others are just like, I'm just picking something because how inclusive is it to donate $40 or turn on the lights? Like
And so does it
neither.
matter? Does it matter if it always, well, yeah, because the problem is we're wanting for those dollar values to slot in somewhere. Is that
Right.
right?
yeah, so the end goal is like with the tiny survey is that we end up with a number of omnoms for all of
Yeah.
these contributions, including dollar value. And it means we can put a dollar value on omnom, which is
Yeah.
really useful because then when we want to, yeah, it's really useful for like, future donations. We can
Right.
say, well, you can donate to AIMOS and we'll give you this many omnoms basically, or like at least that's the estimate of what you get. So I'm thinking two things. Like one thing is the way we phrased it, select the contribution that demonstrates more inclusivity, transparency, really generic and not very precise. Like perhaps it would be better to say, select a contribution that you feel is more generous, inclusive, transparent, integrous, because
I
that kind
mean,
of talks more about the contribution. What do you think? Is that clearer?
a tiny bit, but I still think for a lot of them, it just doesn't apply in my head.
Yeah, I think that's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess the issue is that some of the time the 80 will go up against the 40 and the 80 will go up against the 1100 and will still be, oh, but then if we're selecting, I mean, I guess we just see where
Yeah,
they
because like
end up.
I was trying whenever I was undecided to say A, but I caught myself a lot of times, whichever one I thought was sort of I was going to choose overall, I found myself putting those same letters in for the characteristics that just weren't relevant to me. I'm like, well, if I'm picking B overall, I guess I'll give it B on the other ones. I'm like, no, I told myself if I'm uncertain, I'll just say A because of the randomization. But it was really hard.
Uh,
I kept
whereas
tripping up.
I just made something up in my head instead of having to be random. Like I never felt uncertain. I just attached some other story
Yeah.
to what the $80 meant instead of like.
And then
Well, these
multiply this out across however many reviewers we get. Um,
Well,
But it will. I mean, in a way, that's interesting in itself because
right.
if
yeah,
we all do different weird stuff, then we see at least whether, like, if it all comes out and we just go, oh my God, that ranking list seems very random, does not fit with what I feel, then, but maybe it will, like,
Maybe it will. I think gratitude should work, but some of the middle ones I'm personally a little bit skeptical of given the context.
yeah. Well, I mean, the principal dimension is gratitude, and the rest are all
Yeah.
kind of just filler information. So it's not
yeah.
so it's not such a big deal if they don't work so well. And I think that's what we're going to learn. Like we learned that some of the metrics out of Carnium didn't work so well.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably going to learn the same thing here, and we'll probably, yeah, we'll find that there are different response patterns for different people, and we can interrogate those and find out, okay, yeah, so this reviewer always answered a lot of the time, and it seems to be their strategy. So I guess treating it
Yeah.
as learning, and I mean, my response is like, what I do is if I'm unsure, I pretty much just copy what I put for the gratitude,
Right.
because if I'm more grateful for something and I think it's a bigger contribution, then I think it's probably also going to lead to more creativity, and it's going to lead to more transparency. You know, if it's more dollars being donated, that creates more potential
Oh, for
for
dollars,
creativity.
sure. Yeah.
So I tend to just sort of be biased by what I'm most grateful for, and that tends to bias the rest of my responses when I'm unsure. But that's just my way of doing things. So
Right.
yeah, I think everyone would have a different way of doing it, and it's a balance between, like, we could either be over prescriptive here and try and demand that people respond in a particular way, or we could just let people respond and then we can
Well,
ask them what they did.
that's what I'm wondering. Do we tell them what to do if they're unsure to try and reduce the noise a little bit? Or do we just let them do whatever they want and then try and sort it out?
And maybe, well, although like that was down to my whole what's the purpose, because I was going to go, and maybe then we ask them what they did do, like if they had
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's
if
an
they
option.
had a sort of strategy or a thing that they noticed they did when,
Yeah,
you know, they weren't.
I quite like that actually.
Yeah, maybe we can add that to the like
Yeah, to the
reviewer
end.
instructions pane or something to ask them to, like, a follow-up quiz, just
Yeah.
to say, yeah, were there any strategies or anything that you
Because there's a, oh, far out, I've got so many windows open. There's a thing, a column for notes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like a column in each individual review.
So was that going to stay there for others, or was that just
Yeah,
there
I
while
think
we
so.
were here? Okay, yeah.
I think it's useful.
Yeah, well,
And
people
then
could,
there's also reviewer feedback in the reviewers pane. So people could also use that to yeah, at the end they could like type any comments or feedback or strategies they used. Just
yeah,
what
okay, yeah.
did you have meetings at 4 p.m. because it's 4
Yes, I
p.m.
just realized I've got to go to this marking one, so I do have to run.
Okay,
I will email to confirm that I have submitted that ethics waiver. That's my goal ASAP. So I'll
thank you.
yeah, I'll email you both, but I'll just let me check anything else. Oh no. They were just my own notes to me. Okay, all good. So
All right.
yeah, talk soon.
Yes, sounds good.
Hope you
Thanks,
can
Emma.
have some breathing time to process everything that's got to happen.
Yeah, I think I need
See
it.
ya.
See you.
Bye.
All right. Take care.
Um,
Well, I'm glad that we probably found a good solution to the ethics question.
yeah, that
I'm
feels good to
optimistic
me.
that the waiver should work. I hope.
I hope so too. I mean, we have already collected the data, so it's, yeah, as you say, it's kind of,
Oh, getting the waiver for collecting the data, I'm sure. I just mean the waiver for also then going and just coding it. I don't
coding
see
it,
why
yeah.
there'd be a problem there. So, oh,
One thought that
to go.
popped up.
Sorry, the dogs are going a bit nuts. I have to go.
Okay, all right.
Go sort them, but I'm on email, so if you have follow-up questions, just reach out.
Yeah, well, I have a thought about the dollar value one, just removing the descriptor, but I think I need to think about that and see how that affects. Because
Yeah, I would
we
think
could just put some
about
generic
that.
amounts in. We could just put
Yeah.
in $1,000, $100, $500, and just put them in as
Contributing
amounts.
X dollars to the conference and just sort of strip the other stuff might simplify it. Yeah.
Yeah, take away some of that confusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll
You to
think on
consider.
that one.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Coops. Take care.
See ya.
See you.